What's up, Awesemo? PeteyMac with Gundacker on a Friday. We have coaxed Gundacker out of bed a little early. How are you doing, sir? You coffeeed up with Red Bull? What do you got going here?
Nah, if I know I'm gonna hit the bed again, I probably don't hit the caffeine. So I'm just gonna bring the energy I got for 15 games. We'll be all right.
Here we go. So we bring Gundacker. It's like waking you up at 3 a.m, in the middle of the night, bang out a show, and then boom, pop right back into bed. So we'll try not to get that adrenaline flowing too much today, and keep it easy. Now, look, we got 15 games. A couple of things jump out right away. Coors Field is on the slate with the A's visiting Colorado, and not a ton of big-time pitching options, as it turns out.
No, I mean, there's a couple of guys that will rise to the top, a couple of guys that might end up being overowned because they're the lesser of all evils. But yeah, for every team in the league to be playing tonight, it is kind of a shallow position at pitcher.
Yeah, so we'll get into that throughout the show, try to find maybe some other value plays, other directions to go potentially. And just real quick last night, and you guys get involved in the YouTube chat and become part of the show here. But, Mike threw out there that last night was kind of rough. And look, it wasn't a night where the big stack hit. So if you're playing 5-man stacks, it wasn't going to be your night. I think, was it 7 runs was maybe the highest total you had on the night slate last night. When you have 30 teams playing, somebody's going to get up there into the double digits, you got to think. But, it does feel like there have been more slates where you don't have that team that just absolutely pops. The pitching is dominating this year. Has it adjusted at all the way that you put together your lineups, Gundacker?
No, I mean, I might obviously there's a lot of people pointing fingers at the dead ball era, the sticky stuff. I just think it's still a little early in the season. I definitely think as the dog days of summer get here, we'll have more football scores because there's been a couple slates where we've hit into the teens. But yeah, last night definitely was more of a night where I did better because I had a lot more of the singular home runs, one-off stuff like that. But if you went all in on a 5-man stack, you probably didn't knock on the door of a top 10.
No, I know I didn't. But, you go back 2 nights ago and, the Dodgers scored 11 runs in the first inning. So it's not as if you're never getting these big pops. It's just they seem to be, anecdotally maybe, a little harder to find over the course of this year. But again, you have 30 teams playing on a night like tonight. Somebody's going to get up there, and we'll try to help you find who that team is going to be and not find who that pitcher is going to be. Remember, if you can't watch your favorite Awesemo shows live on YouTube, almost all of our shows are on the Awesemo podcast network. So you can take it with you, listen on demand. And if you submit a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or Awesemo username included, you'll be entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We pick one lucky winner every Friday. Somebody's winning today, and your reviews will be eligible to win for up to a year. Now, this is the best chance out there to get a free month of Awesemo Plus, as you'll be competing against less people in this contest than in any other giveaway that we run. So make your 5-star review count. We've got a podcast for every sport available on every major platform. Head on over to awesemo.com/podcast to check out the latest. And since you are watching on the stream right now, give us a like, subscribe on YouTube. We appreciate all of that. That's what keeps us going here and helping you out, try to get you to cash up and get into the Awesemo Hall of Fame, which we'll get into a little bit later. All of our DFS offers, giveaways, stay tuned to it. Get the notifications when the shows go live. So make sure you do all of that, and you could use promo code MLB Strategy Show at checkout to get 15% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That's the new promo code for new Awesemo Plus members only. That's MLB Strategy Show, all caps, one word, for 15% off your first week of Awesemo Plus if you are a new member. So let's get into it, and we will begin with the Red Sox and Yankees going head-to-head. The Yanks feeling, a little bit better about themselves. At least they split against Tampa Bay Rays. Not exactly a good day yesterday for Garrett Cole and company. Not a dynamic pitching matchup here, Gundacker. It's Nathan Eovaldi, who's done a nice job for Boston, and then Michael King for the Yankees, who I wouldn't expect is going very deep into this game.
Yeah, Michael King kind of there by circumstance. The back end of their starting rotation is really rough. They're having to splice together some of the minor league guys, Davey Garcia, Michael King, people like that. Nathan Eovaldi taking the bump for the Red Sox, former Yankee great. He's at 8,500. We're kind of going to put him in the yuck bucket, but we probably still have him in the 150 lineups. This is a spot against a Yankees team that will offer up some strikeouts. It's a fire and ice spot. It's pretty volatile, but there is a range of outcome, I think, where Eovaldi at 8,500 on DraftKings can maybe pop you with the 20-plus DKP performance. Obviously, this Yankees offense, it hasn't got there yet, but you always feel like they're a flip of the switch away. Giancarlo Stanton, Judge, Giovanni Urshela, DJ LeMahieu, even Gary Sanchez can put one over the wall. They haven't been firing on all cylinders, but maybe one special Friday night it'll come together in a division rivalry game that's actually pretty important. Yankees 4 games back, a couple games here could mean double as they try to chase down the Rays. So I'm going to be walking the fence here. I'll have a little bit of both, but Eovaldi is 8,500 on a night where we've already alluded that there's not a lot of high-end pitching. There's a world where Eovaldi lives as a formidable option tonight.
Yeah, the top pitchers tool, which is free today at Awesemo.com, has it with a 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings, and he's only 0.5% owned. So you have some positive leverage if he does pop. Now, one thing that's interesting about Eovaldi, he's only given up 1 home run all season. That might be something where it's due to turn around, but does that make you cautious at all to say stack the Yankees against him?
Yeah, I mean, so last year he had a pretty big home run problem to righties, but it seems like the numbers might be a little bit more anomalic compared to what he did in 2018, 2019. He had just about a little over 1 home run per night to righties. Last year was at 237. What I'd be looking for regression wise is the numbers versus righties. He hasn't given up a bomb numbers versus lefty. Historically, that's been kind of where he can leak a little bit more, and that's where the hard contact rate is usually near 40%. This year has been at 30%. You could almost say who cares at this point, because the Yankees not really going to serve up a lot of lefties, maybe a Rougned Odor. Guardy finally got him one, but for the most part, this Yankees lineup going to be pretty righty dominant. And that's always been Eovaldi's better split. Consistent strikeout rate, 25% so far this season. You do expect regression eventually. But even if he regresses to his older self, it's going to be a favorable split here against the Yankees.
Yeah, well, it's been impressive, at least to this point of the year. 1 home run allowed in 60-plus innings for Nathan Eovaldi. And just something that I think is worth throwing out from yesterday. It's kind of a big picture thing, more than something that's going to factor in on tonight's slate or maybe for the next few days. But Garrett Cole went out yesterday, and he didn't pitch well. He kind of labored through. The spin rate was down. Now, something that Major League Baseball is doing is looking at these pitchers right now, and they're trying to crack down on the substances, the sticky icky that is allowing these spin rates to skyrocket, and why we're seeing pitchers dominate so much. So I'm curious, over the next week, looking at some of these pitchers, if you see the spin rate drop considerably, that's got to be something you take note of eventually for certain guys and say, well, maybe their performance is really going to come down. I think Garrett Cole is, one of those poster boys for this. Certainly Trevor Bauer is. If their performance goes down, just as this happens, you got to look at that kind of seriously going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time for baseball. Usually when cheating scandals occur, it's more so from the offense. Pitchers have always used sticky stuff. So I don't know that baseball can get away with just cutting it off cold turkey overnight. But I do think as the more and more committees discuss what's going on, I think eventually the realistic solution is probably to come up with a new substance that goes above rosin that everyone can use, but only that one. And then I'm sure we'll see people adjust to that. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time to watch that unfold.
No, for such a long time, the hitters were fine with it because, hey, I want the pitcher to have control. I don't want fastballs coming at my head. But I mean, we do see fastballs coming at guys' heads this year. And obviously the balance is just a little bit off there. So I think that's really going to be worth watching over the course of the next week or so, and something to keep in mind for Garrett Cole with the way things went yesterday. Let's get to Cleveland, Baltimore. Giancarlo Mejia making his first career start. Has been in the bullpen for the most part this year, but did have a couple of starts at AAA earlier this season. And Keegan Aiken, another bullpen arm, getting a start for Cleveland. So we talked about the pitching kind of lacking today. And yeah, 3 of the first 4 pitchers we're talking about are, mostly bullpen arms getting spot starts.
Yeah, I'm pulling up Giancarlo Mejia's numbers from the minors this season. And it looks like ERA has been pretty solid, sitting around 2 or less, not a ton of innings of sample size, 14 total, 17 strikeouts in 14 innings. So looks like at first glance he can be a strikeout pitcher. Looks like he's kind of sustained about a 1 strikeout per inning the last couple of years. I don't think he's going to enter my player pool here. 15 games. I probably won't get too cute at pitcher. So I'd probably just be looking more at the offenses here. Maybe take advantage of Camden. Indians got a couple of guys that can get the platoon advantage against Aiken. Aiken's been pretty solid himself in terms of limiting power in the big leagues, but I don't expect either of these pitchers to last very, very long. So you just kind of bet on talent for 9 innings and a favorable ballpark. So guys like Jose Ramirez, maybe Cesar Hernandez, Eddie Rosario, I put them in the mix. And then on the Orioles side, Mancini, Santander remains pretty cheap to be top 3 in that order. Maybe not full committing to a full stack here, but I'd probably cherry pick from the better bat options and just throw them in the pool. And I'm probably going to be out on pitchers, even though it is a big Coors night where the one of those teams looks really, really good. So you might try to get a little creative at pitcher, but that's probably not going to be my approach.
And it feels like, we've been, or at least the ownership rates have been very high against the Orioles, waiting for that pitching to implode. And the Twins didn't quite get over the top this week. So we'll see if Baltimore can survive if Cleveland is very popular again this time around. Mitch Keller is very popular for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think it's our 3rd most owned pitcher, estimating those ownership rates, at least on DraftKings, as he goes up against the Miami Marlins. I mean, you look at Keller, he's got 6.5 ERA. He's had 3 starts so far this year with negative DraftKings points. He does strike out some guys. So I guess there's a little bit of upside, but I'm surprised at just how popular he is, though he is, pretty good value, I suppose, if he's able to survive 5 or 6 innings.
Yeah, I think that's one of those spots where the field will just try and pick on a bad team in spots where they don't have a ton of access to upper echelon pitching. There's not a lot of redeeming qualities in Mitch Keller's advanced metrics. Sierra X with both well over 5, swinging strike rate under 10% this year, high whip. It's just a matter of can he and his pitch count live at 5,600 to maybe 10-15 fantasy points as an SP2 on DK, which would cut some costs, cut some corners to give you that money to invest in like the Athletics.
And then Cody Petit, he had been a value guy for a while. Not as much value tonight, though not bad. Had his first bad start his last time around against the Boston Red Sox. But even with that, he still struck out 6. So Petit has been certainly a name to know in DFS this year.
Yeah. At 6,600, I'd potentially be more inclined to look at the Petit side. Hasn't really, he hasn't got you negative. That's a positive start for fantasy pitching. But the Pirates certainly aren't a world shaking offense. They did get Ke'Bryan Hayes back in the mix yesterday, but they're still a weak enough team, particularly against righties, where I can maybe to capitalize on an extra implied strikeout here and there. And at 6,600, 15 plus DKP, probably the mark, over 1,000 more than what Keller's going to run you on DK, but I probably feel a little bit more confident with Petit than Keller. It's not saying a whole lot, but that's probably the gut reaction.
Well, let's get to some of the bigger name pitchers at the higher end of the board now as the Nationals be facing the Phillies tonight. Fun matchup. Max Scherzer going for Washington. He's been on a run. Hasn't allowed more than 2 runs in any start in the entire month of May. has been between 21 and 40 DraftKings points throughout that month. And then Zack Wheeler is posting a career best 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been getting better of late, 36 strikeouts over his last 3 outings, 30-plus DraftKings points in 5 of his last 7. I mean, Zack Wheeler has really emerged as not a guy who's just, okay, he's a good pitcher, but doesn't strike out enough. He's become a strikeout guy where he is deserving of the 5-figure price tag.
Yeah, you just mentioned, potential spin rates going up for some guys. And, maybe that's a name to put on the watch list for spin rate going forward. But this is probably a game that features 2 of the more sought after and viable pitchers on today's slate. There's some bats involved in this one that you do kind of fear. Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Real Muto, Hoskins, guys like that. But with the pitching pool being as shallow as it is, there's certainly a world where Scherzer and Zack Wheeler are top 4, top 5 scoring pitchers. And maybe those points, those raw points, mean a little bit more at the end of the night if some of the more trendy mid-tier value pitchers don't quite cut the mustard. So you can absolutely sell me on Scherzer and Wheeler, both of those guys with 30 DKP point potential. Obviously, there are some leaks in both pitchers' games, particularly historically guys that can give up bombs to lefties. So maybe you do look at the Sotos, the Bells, I'm really not going to get too scared of like a Odubel Herrera, but yeah, maybe you try and cherry pick those guys to be contrarian if the ownership got a little out of there. But I'm probably just leaning more so on the pitching side here, and then we'll have to regulate the ownership levels in my own pool later tonight to kind of still give me that budget for the Athletics and some of those big boppers.
I mean, is there a world where you're going Scherzer and Wheeler, let's say, and fade Coors, or is that not really the way that you're looking at how the slate shakes up as of now?
Yeah, there is. Coors ownership right now, it looks like we have them sitting at 20%. As the day goes by and the run totals kind of settle a little bit more, if the ownership gets to 25% on a Friday night that has every team playing mathematically in baseball, there's going to be plenty of leverage implied by targeting some of these other teams. Coors won't be the only stadium producing runs tonight. So if the ownership went up a little bit more, I might be able to walk backwards from that game and throw a blanket over Scherzer, Wheeler. Hopefully one of them gets to win and it's a pitcher's duel that maybe sees, 1-2 runs. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's a viable strategy and might be more so something that I think is lucrative if Coors ownership gets a little too aggressive.
And ownership, it's vital. When you load up your contest, you don't want to see that Matt Chapman is 30% owned tonight and you're locked into him in a lot of lineups. And one way to get that kind of information and have it estimated for you is through the great tools of Awesemo Plus. And go to Awesemo. You get content on every DFS sport out there with the Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com that we talk about on this show nonstop, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and much, much more. And if you're only looking to play MLB DFS, you could sign up now for Awesemo Plus MLB Weekly Package for just about half the price at $15.95. You don't care about basketball, you don't care about hockey, you just want to lock into baseball, under $16 for that Awesemo Plus Weekly Pass. Stop guessing, start winning, join Awesemo Plus today. And if you just kind of want to try it out, we have the MLB Top Pitchers tool free at Awesemo.com today. NBA player rankings, NHL player rankings, MMA top fighter rankings free as well. Zack Greinke, he's just keeps motoring on, man. He's got the ERA a touch over 3.5. He's been kind of viable this year, even as I think a lot of us have picked against him at times. And he gets a Toronto Blue Jays lineup that obviously has a lot of pop tonight in Buffalo.
Yeah, Greinke's 8,700. I think maybe some of those NBA stragglers that tiptoe through the back door wanting something to sweat might be misunderstood on who Greinke is in 2021. Has put together, two of his last 3 games were probably a serviceable games, 20 plus DKP at 8,700. Today, I'm probably not going to really get there. The Blue Jays, although they did move to the Buffalo Park and out of Dunedin, it's still going to be a park that isn't by any stretch really a pitcher's park, more so a hitter's park. And this Blue Jays offense has been really doggone solid. So I don't really have a reason to get to Greinke today. Not at that price. There's too many guys around that area that probably have similar floors, or actually better floors, and maybe even greater upside in 2021. I would be seeking out some Blue Jays. We're looking for some teams that have talent to be an alternative to Coors. If the Blue Jays are firing on all cylinders, they absolutely have potential to hang a couple touchdowns here. And Vladimir Guerrero has just been absolutely on fire, and he's a great example of a potential Coors pivot at 5,500. Knee-jerk reactions just to put that type of money into a Coors Field bat. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a lot of the smartest people right now think that he should be the MVP in the league, and he's just been crushing it. So at 5,500, I think he would be a solid upside investment, and he's surrounded by a lot of talent that can take advantage of Greinke's lack of strikeout ability in 2021, and Greinke has had a home run problem, especially to righties, going back to the beginning of last season, and this is a lineup chock full of righties. So I definitely would be an investor in some Blue Jays bats here, and I don't think I'm in on Greinke.
Yeah, the thing about Toronto is just those bats have started to get pretty expensive, and they were taking advantage of crushing at Dunedin minor league park, but they're still at a minor league park at Buffalo, and it's still like 367 to left center. And it's not just Vladdy. It's Marcus Semien is having a phenomenal year. Teoscar Hernandez has done a tremendous job since he came back from the injured list. You have more pop and, Lourdes Gurriel and Randall Grichuk. I mean, this is a lineup that can just mash. So rather difficult matchup for Greinke, obviously. And then on the other side, Hyunjin Ryu, he's been consistently good for this Toronto Blue Jays team this year, at least 15 DraftKings points in 9 of his last 10 starts. How playable do you think he is in a relatively tough matchup against Houston?
Yeah, if you just want to diversify and, get a talented pitcher in your player pool and just see what happens, go for it. If you were limited in lineups, 2050, for me, I probably wouldn't get Ryu to make the cut. And it's not a Ryu thing. It's more of an Astros thing, and it's more specifically an Astros against lefties thing. This is a lineup that doesn't possess a lot of strikeouts against lefties. Altuve, Correa, Bregman, Gurriel, Kyle Tucker, and Miles Straw. I got a sub 20% K rates, really sub 18% K rates against lefties. So there's not a lot of strikeout potential that he's inheriting in this matchup, and strikeouts king, especially on a slate like this. So Ryu's a good pitcher. I don't necessarily want to go after and pick on him, but if I'm trying to get ceiling return on investment, I don't know that the strikeouts are really prevalent in this spot.
Let's jump to Ryu's former team, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They'll be in Atlanta tonight. Usually a good spot for some runs. The over-under sitting there at 9 runs for this game. And not a bad pitching matchup either, with Julio Urias going up against Ian Anderson. What do you make of two quality younger starters and an over-under line that is that high on this night, one of the higher over-unders on the night?
Yeah, I think it's just respect to the offenses here. Urias and Ian Anderson definitely, in against just about any other teams today. Maybe Sans 5. I'd be looking at them a lot deeper. I think Ian Anderson might be a victim of his salary on DraftKings, almost $11K. That's a lot to ask for and pretty hard to justify. Just $500 stone throw from a guy like Max Scherzer going against, perceptually the number one team in baseball coming to the season. You just don't know if the risk reward is there for his ceiling versus this matchup. So I probably wouldn't be an investor at 10-9. If he was closer to that Fanduel price, 8-3, I might toy with it. Urias, same thing. $11K seems like a lot to ask for. His his matchup does possess a little bit more strikeout potential than the Dodgers side of things. The Dodgers against righties, a lot of their big boys have sub 17% K rates over the course of the last 2 seasons against righties. So maybe he steals a decent game, but it's not going to be a warm and fuzzy spot if you're clicking his name at 11K. Again, kind of like Ryu, you don't necessarily feel inclined to full stack against him. But you don't know that you're going to extract the ceiling that you want at these prices. So maybe if their ownership dips to like 8% or less, I'd probably revisit and just, maybe get some exposure just because baseball is baseball. But from where I'm sitting right now, like at these prices, based on the way the slate's formed and, guys like Max Scherzer up there at that price area and Peralta, there's a lot of, more established guys at 10K plus and better matchups that I'd probably be putting my salary into.
Yeah, on another slate, maybe it is a different story, and we're getting into Arias and Anderson for a long period of time, and who can really break out on a given day, but not necessarily on a slate where you have 30 starting pitchers to choose from. And you mentioned baseball being kind of weird. If you were to say stack against one of these guys and just kind of throw that dart. The Mets did score 13 runs in an Ian Anderson start last time around, and he only was responsible for 4 of those runs, but you get him out, and then you see what kind of damage can be done against the bullpen, just the way it went last time for Anderson and the Atlanta Braves. Tampa Bay is visiting Texas, coming off their series split in New York. They had been the hottest team in baseball. Not sure it changed a whole lot with what happened over the course of this week. A big win for them to get on the plane and feel good about against Garrett Cole and company. And this could be Josh Fleming going heads up against Kyle Gibson, who's yet to lose this year, a 2.24 ERA. The Rays typically a team that do have some strikeouts, and Gibson, to me, has been kind of a surprise that he has been fantasy relevant this year.
Yeah, 7,600 on Kyle Gibson's kind of an intriguing price point. If you just hope for maybe 2-3x on that DK salary. Didn't miss a ton of time since coming off the 10-day IL. He pitched on the 21st, so we're not too concerned about him not being stretched out. He was pitching, several of his last couple starts well over 100 pitches. So I think the arm is stretched out well enough to not be concerned about a potential lower pitch cap because of his small stint on the DL. What I would say, if you're taking notes, asterisk, keep an eye on the roof situation. Probably going to be closed right now. It's projected to be closed. It's been pretty wet and muggy in Texas. So if the roof's closed, it's definitely a park that can play a little bit more pitcher friendly. And then the Rays, definitely a lineup that can offer a surprisingly high amount of strikeouts at time, almost a 1-4 strikeout rate on the season, and several bats in this lineup, 20+%, 28+%. So Gibson at 7,600 probably makes the back end of my player pool today. And Josh Fleming, not so much. It looks like it might lean more towards a bullpen game for the Rays side of things. He's got 70, 80 pitches. The Fleming train's on the way, by the way. 70, 80 pitches in his last 2 starts. So maybe he does go 5-6 innings, but I'm probably, 6K for a lefty against the Rangers.
It's tough to trust the Rays.
Yeah. I don't think there's a zero-sum range of outcome for Fleming to pay off 6K if we're talking about punting, pure punting, that SP2. But I don't get the warm fuzzies right now, but I could see myself getting to maybe more Gibson than I should be.
And if you happen to catch this last night, at least I guess a relatively positive update on Tyler Zombro, the minor leaguer for the Rays. He was hit by a comebacker last night. He's in stable condition, but I did find the video for that. Watch that. I mean, that's the worst thing I think in baseball is when you have that comeback or back to the pitcher and you got hit right in the side of the head. Ugh.
Yeah, that's literally life-threatening, and it's every pitch, and a lot of people take that for granted.
Yeah. No, that's it was scary stuff. Arizona, Milwaukee. The Brewers have Freddie Peralta on the hill against Arizona. This is a game that was pretty popular to jump on these stacks with it being in Milwaukee, and it paid off to some degree. You had some homers in that game at the very least. We make a Freddie Peralta this matchup against Arizona, Diamondbacks offense that generally hasn't been very good on a very not a very good team.
Yeah, I think Freddie Peralta might be one of the Cinderella names. Looks like we have him. I think he'll end up. Yeah, you got him sitting right under 20% projected ownership this early in the morning. 10.4K. Kind of wish he was a little bit cheaper. D-backs lineup, kind of middling here in terms of strikeout potential last couple of years against righties for this projected lineup. But Peralta has held some high strikeout rates. I'm a little bit worried about maybe his numbers against lefties being a little bit more lucky results wise. Walks might be an issue for him against lefties. And then historically, we've seen the line drive rate and the hard contact be a little bit more elevated than you want. And the reason that's a concern is the D-backs will probably be more lefties than righties if you consider some of these switch hitters. So I definitely will be in on Peralta, but I think if you consider the ballpark, D-backs could play spoiler. So if you're going to have yourself some Peralta, probably hedge yourself with some stacks, and I see the roof projected to be open, mid 80 degree temperatures out there in former Miller Park. So it could, like I say, it could be a spoiler night for the D-backs offense against Peralta, and that might actually make them a pretty fun low-owned stack, all things considered, if we're looking for some of those pivots to Coors Field. I definitely think D-backs are pretty viable price-wise. Only Ketel Marte at 5K, so just to kind of revisit the idea of like our Scherzer and Wheeler pitcher stack lineup, D-backs might be one of those offenses that doubles down that thought process and could take advantage of the ballpark and perhaps some Freddie Peralta regression against lefties.
You just blew my mind. I had no idea they changed the name of that ballpark. How is that not Miller Park?
It's like I think it's like a American family field, something like yeah. Wow. How is that not Miller Park? I mean, I'm going to call that Miller Park for the next 30 years until they close that place down. It's that's an odd one. I can't imagine calling it anything else. It's one thing like when Arizona or San Francisco changes a corporate name, and Miller's a corporation, but it's I don't know. It's just synonymous. It's a Brewers. They got to play at a beer sponsored ballpark. But anyway, yes, Freddie Peralta, obviously major upside there, has struck out either 7 or 8 in each of his last 8 starts. So pretty consistent with the strikeout numbers there. And then, the Brewers offense, they're finally relatively healthy here. They have Christian Yelich back, did hit a home run last night. Is that become a viable offense now, especially as it warms up a little bit there in Milwaukee? Yeah, Brewers offense definitely represented a lot of ownership last night. I'm sure a lot of people maybe had more Colton Wong than they wanted. He didn't last long. And I think it was Luis Urias came in for him, and I think he homered.
Yes.
And you just felt like, that should have been Colton Wong. But lineups looking a little bit better. Jackie Bradley, I got right now projected potential leadoff. Brewers are going to probably end up with one of the higher implied run totals. So yeah, I think Brewers stack definitely very valuable. And outside of Christian Yelich, extremely affordable, all under 4K. And on FanDuel, Yelich tops out at 3,600. So they might end up being overowned. Like yesterday, I did feel like maybe they were overowned when it was time to put the pencils down. But I definitely can see the case here for the Brewers.
And they go up against Matt Peacock tonight. Let's talk about our sponsor, PrizePicks, who is offering the simplest fantasy game on the market. Say goodbye to sharks, lineup optimizers, mass multi-entry. You simply pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 players available on the board to go either over or under their projected score. And if you correctly select a 5-player lineup, you can net up to 10 times your entry fee. And you play everything here from the NFL, NBA, esports. PrizePicks has it, and you could combine your picks across all sports available as well. So you want to play a little NBA tonight and then mix in some baseball as well, you can do that. Download the mobile app in the App Store or on Google Play today and make your first deposit to receive an instant deposit match of up to $100 when you use promo code Awesemo. Simplify daily fantasy with PrizePicks today. We're halfway home, Gundacker. We got 8 of 15 done.
Yeah, we're cruising.
Dude, it's a slate tonight. It's Friday night. There's no Wrigley, so it's a jam-packed thing to get to. So let's run into the Tigers and the White Sox. Spencer Turnbull, he has his no-hitter on the resume here. Probably not a great spot for that again, as he did Chicago White Sox. But Turnbull, I mean, he's been playable. He had some strikeout upside, even if it's not a great matchup here on the South side.
Yeah, I think, tonight's slate, you're probably not going to, tug on Superman's cape and spit in the wind, and spitting in the wind might be pitching against the White Sox with some wind. It looks like we might be having some of those Chicago winds tonight. So I don't think I get to Spencer Turnbull. Definitely White Sox are a stat that when healthy or healthier, they're a team I'll be targeting just by default, like, almost regardless of who they're going against. They're just too talented not to. So yeah, not likely to invest in Turnbull here. Keuchel to return it, contact lefty. This is a weird spot. Like the Tigers are just kind of one of those teams we talked about, just pitching against like the Marlins just because they're a bad team. But man, I don't know if Keuchel's going to give me some of that strikeout upside that I'm looking for. But
he could give you 7 innings and not go over 20 points. I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at.
Exactly. So if he eats 7 innings and lets a couple over, it may not be an optimal score at the end of the night. So it's just one of those spots where I don't feel inclined to pick on him per se, but I don't know that he's going to prosper from a fantasy ceiling upside. But if the ceiling ends up getting really wonky and we get some weird names at SP2, maybe he's got a chip in a chair. But if I want to pick on him, maybe I'm looking at Jonathan Scope, who has shown some power lately, slugging over 500 against lefties the last 2 years. So might be somebody I look at there. And then Eric Haas, the catcher, if he catches that lineup, has been bringing his bat to work. So there are some home run potential guys in the Tigers lineup for me.
Multi-homer game a couple of days ago, a week ago for Haas, and found himself in the optimal lineup. Twins, Royals, Matt Shoemaker, Brad Keller, the matchup here, not to be confused with Mitch Keller at Pittsburgh there. Both these guys, ERA is close to 6. The over-under, 9.5 in Kansas City. So not really looking at the pitching here a whole lot.
Nah, I hate when the Kellers end up on the slate together. Matt Shoemaker at 5-1. Like I said, you mentioned some weird names for SP2 options to get you some Coors bats. So if you're just looking for a guy that eats 5-6, maybe scoops a win and gets 3 strikeouts in 5 innings, maybe Shoemaker's 15. You treat him as a baseball bat and hope you get home run points. But yeah, I'm looking more so at the offenses here. Kauffman Stadium usually going to play a little bit more pitcher friendly, but 80 degrees out there. Looks like a light wind blowing out left center. Both offenses are viable. I think the Royals offense a little bit more viable because Matt Shoemaker definitely has some power problems, and we've seen yesterday the Royals bats were on. Salvador Perez represented 2 homers, just 3K on Fanduel, and on Fanduel a lot of people just ignore catchers altogether, and it seems night after night I'm seeing catchers cheap power, and I think we can't forget Salvador Perez exists today. On DraftKings, the prices on the Royals are probably a little out of comfort, but that might make them a little bit more lucrative. On the Twin side, Donaldson had a pair of bombs yesterday. The thing with Brad Keller, while he's a contact pitcher, he's also a ground ball pitcher. So you've definitely seen the Twins fall victim to ground ball pitching in the last week, and just kind of overall underperforming in spots where you feel like they shouldn't. That Orioles series is Exhibit A, but I wouldn't not have Twins in the player pool. I just don't know that I'm going to commit to a decent chunk of lineups for a stack right now, but they'll be in a player pool. But I definitely want some Royal stacks.
Yeah, and the Twins and Royals, they've been very popular, it seems, over the last week, and they're both negatively leveraged tonight, but not by as much as they have been over the course of the last week, at least not as of now. And that's where the top stacks tool can really help you out at Awesemo. It's not free today. The top pitchers tool is, but the stacks gives you a little idea of where you can find some of that leverage. Cincinnati, St. Louis, before we get into the Coors Field special, I got to ask about Luis Castillo. He's still looked at and owned about 15% if you look at the top pitchers tool right now. Dude's got a 7+ ERA. He's been a good pitcher in the past, but at what point? We're past Memorial Day now. At what point do you say Luis Castillo is just someone you can't play anymore?
People just, the heart wants what it wants. The Sierra over 4.5 right now. And that's, a 1.2 over what we saw last season. And he's always held at under 4. So, a lot of people hoping he gets right. And unfortunately, at 7,300, I think they're going to keep hoping. I think today, people are going to keep playing them at this price point. And I got to be honest, I don't know that I would have none at 7,300. If I'm looking for, a guy that can knock on the door of 20, is definitely within the range of outcomes, but he's only hit 20 plus, I think, twice this season. And that's a bit alarming. So he's definitely a poster child of somebody that if I see the ownership getting a little out of control, I can walk backwards on it and just hope he's average for another day. You like to see that strikeout rate to righties come back up. But yeah, I'm with you. He's definitely a cause for concern. But if I can get him at sub 10% ownership, I'll throw him in the mix. But if he ends up being like an 18%er by the field, I might just be out on him. And I don't know that I would get too involved in like a full-on leverage stack at that rate with the Cardinals bats, but it's certainly viable.
There is leverage, 0.6% owned. That's how old the Cardinals stack is tonight. If you don't think Luis Castillo is going to have this big comeback behind him, and then the other way, the Cincinnati Reds offense, always a little bit of pop there. Kwang Young Kim going for St. Louis, done a decent job for them.
Yeah, I like the Reds offense overall. Castellanos, Eugenio Suarez, especially chipping a chair against a lefty. I wish it was in Great American. I think the Reds are definitely a team that profiles a little bit better at home, but who wouldn't? So I'll cherry pick some of those bats, but I don't think I'm gonna get to a stack here. Their run total is actually kind of low, all things considered. Just at 4 is what I'm seeing. So I might just be cherry picking bats. I don't think I'm too in on these pitchers, but maybe I'm sleeping on Kim. Maybe I should have a little bit more respect for him. I'm looking at. I mean, if you're going to have shots of Castillo based on his body of work this season and ignore Kim, I think that would be a little bit unfair because Kim might have a higher floor day to day and he gets the home cooking. So maybe I'll get to Kim. Right now, no, but maybe I'll get there.
Certainly, to this point this year has been a little more trustworthy than Luis Castillo, a lot more trustworthy than Luis Castillo. Let's get to the big one. Coors Field, the over-under at 10.5 as the A's visit. The Rockies, their offense is just putrid, so Coors Field hasn't been as much of a factor on these slates, I feel like, this year as it has been in recent years, but you always got to pay attention to who that road team is coming in, and the Oakland A's, I would say the one thing to warn about is that they do platoon a lot. And if you see some, switches in the pitching midway through the game, some guys are going to be coming out, right? I know Seth Brown is always platooning in the outfield, and there's some guys you might have to be careful of, but major upside, and they are expected to be the top stack tonight at Coors Field. How in love with you are you with the Oakland A's bats?
First of all, I'm just perplexed with the DK pricing. I don't know. The algorithm just isn't what it once was. Usually you get the Coors tax, which is bats are more expensive, which today they're not really. I think Matt Olson would be 5'3" in most ballparks. And the rest of the lineup, 4K-ish or less, maybe Mark Canha is up there. And then usually you'll get reduced offerings for pitching. I'm looking at Frankie Montas at almost 10K on DraftKings. That seems aggressive. And John Gray, 9K. So I don't know if someone fell asleep at the wheel, but it definitely feels like they kind of shook this game up to where the Athletics are going to have to be owned because they're going to have a run total that probably ends up being 6+ when the dust settles. So
what is Elvis Andrus tonight? Because he's been like 2K. Is he still under 20?
He's 2,500 on DraftKings.
Look, and the thing about Coors is it's not just home runs. So you're looking for, you're not expecting a home run from Andrus, but you get all that outfield space. You got a guy with still a little speed at his age, and you're looking at doubles and triples that can add up pretty quickly. He's going to be, I would think, majorly owned.
Yeah. So in years past, if you had a situation like this where you had a 6+ team run total, usually the whole team would be 5K, and then you can't like get easy access to the top price pitcher, Max Scherzer. But today's case, you probably can get Max and an athletic stack and really not be pinching too many pennies, and the lineup look pretty balanced, which in my opinion is not great. Like I'd rather a more healthy balance on a Friday night slate to where you don't feel maybe pressured to attack the athletics, but the pricing is just really, really broken. But maybe, like you said, at that point, all we can do is maybe leverage ownership, and hopefully we have a positive range of outcomes versus what we did in our lineups. And like you said, some of these platoon guys get okey doked out of the lineup, and it eats away, 18-20% of the time. But matchup wise, yeah, you can't shy away. Matt Olson's been crushing the baseball. Now you put him, on Mars, and we might see one make its way to Iowa. So I don't mind the A stack by any stretch of the imagination. I feel like I'm going to be ultimately annoyed by the ownership by the time Locke gets here, and then I might have to begrudgingly just like be a mathematician at that point and leverage away from it. But pre-flop, I can't really make a hard case against it that doesn't involve the words ownership.
How would you leverage away from it? Does that mean maybe you have some A's stacks and then some home run guys around it? You hold on to that, but you don't want maybe the A's to be the one-offs in other lineups? I mean, what are some of the strategies there if we do see that the A's are 20-25% owned as we approach lock?
Yeah, I mean, you might look at who's the number one owned guy. I would assume it's probably going to end up being Matt Olson. But also, yeah, you can leverage ownership without surrendering the stack. You can maybe sub-stack it with extremely crazy one-offs, and then also maybe go opposite what the trendier pitchers are. So in this case, we have Max Scherzer, the highest projected player on the slate right now, 38%, with Matt Olson being 31%. So maybe like if you really wanted to commit to that athletic stack, but you wanted that lineup to look different, maybe you just fade Scherzer in it. And if you really, really wanted to go against it, you grab a bat against Scherzer, but it could just be as simple as fading the chalk pitcher that people are using to make that lineup work. So hopefully this ownership doesn't get too aggressive. Like we said, it's a 15-game slate. I would hate to see, right now we got them sitting at 20%. I would hate to see that number get to 30%. I can hold to 20-25%. But on a, like you said, when every team in baseball is on a slate, at some point mathematically long-term in baseball, the projected outcome is not the most common range of outcome.
On the other end, look, Frankie Montas is a good pitcher. Maybe he's not worth the 5-figure price tag on DraftKings tonight. The Rockies' offense has been horrendous, but they are at Coors Field. They did put up some runs yesterday. I think the last couple of days they've been better. Are the Rockies playable tonight for you?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a way to get different too. Just the same ballpark here. The one thing to note here is that a lot of these Coors Field games have been cooler, even as recently as last week or the last series in Coors. I think we saw temps in the 50s and 60s. Today is going to be pushing 90. It's probably the hottest temps so far in Coors Field. So that's only going to help make that field more hitter friendly. And that's when you start seeing some of the average plus pitchers kind of crumble. So Frankie Montas on a normal day, you're probably expecting 20 DKP out of him on the good side. At 10K, you throw him in Coors Field. I probably just fade the field, the pitcher versus the field here. If I wanted to isolate some bats to kind of pick on Montas with, it'd probably be some of the talented power lefties like a Ryan McMahon. We saw Charlie Blackmon. I think he homered yesterday. Maybe some of those lefties, and then here and there sprinkling like a CJ Cron, a Jonathan Daza, just chipping a chair, some valuable order placement, and then at the end of the day, it's Coors. So yeah, I would absolutely be in on the Rocky stack right now. We got them at 5%. it is crazy the drop off in our ownership projections. We're going from a 20% Oakland to everyone else under 10%, including the Rockies in this one. So definitely don't have to get too egregious with your Rockies share as it stands now.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about Coors Field, and I don't think we've seen too many of those, double-digit Coors Field special games this year. But yeah, it's been freezing in Coors Field all year. And now if you're going to start having 90 degrees and the thin air and the big outfield, this is where you start getting those crazy numbers in the mix. And hey, you hit it with the Rockies or the A's, maybe you find yourself in the Awesemo Hall of Fame. And if you're not up on that, you could download the Awesemo avatar, awesemo.com/avatar. And if you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants, you tweet your win to the Awesemo Hall of Fame account. Hey, you cash out as well, so that's good. And you can win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So that's a score. That's a nice way to be, all right? That's a lot of positive things happen for you. Not only do you finish top 3, big contest, but you're getting a free month of Awesemo Plus as well. So, grab that Awesemo avatar, awesemo.com/avatar. And hey, follow the Hall of Fame account as well at Awesemo HOF, and you could see just how close you might have been and what people are able to do with some of the projections at Awesemo. And if you've yet to play tennis DFS, now's a good time to give it a chance. You got the French Open underway, and we just launched our premium tennis DFS projections, which they are free for the French Open, but will be going behind the paywall come Wimbledon. So now is your chance to preview them. DraftKings is offering contests with as much as $20K being awarded to first place. So there is some potential big money there, and you could find these under the tennis category on our homepage at awesemo.com. All right, home stretch, 3 games to go. Seattle, Los Angeles Angels. Shohei Ohtani will be on the mound, and he will be in the starting lineup as well. So kind of messes with those Angels stacks a little bit. But, what do you make of Ohtani? He's always an interesting fantasy pitcher because there's obviously this great upside, but he didn't reach it for a long time the first couple of months of the year.
Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out the most with Ohtani right now is this price point, 7,600. Finally, we've talked about picking on weak teams with average pitching. Now we get probably an average plus pitcher, a really, really good pitcher in Shohei Ohtani at 7,600. I think that's a little too cheap. And right now, I think the ownership projections kind of reflect that as Ohtani is at 34%. I would not be surprised if Ohtani ends up jumping Max Scherzer in ownership by the end of the night. Just because of the reduced price on him, 7,600. You don't need a whole lot, and the Mariners offer one of the better matchups in the league for pitching. Very little power and a lot of strikeout potential, and you got to factor in that no hitter into the projection, the no hitter potential. So, home cooking for Ohtani. Yeah, I again the DK pricing is really, really wacky today. So I'll be right there on Ohtani. Can't really push back that anything that doesn't involve the words ownership and leverage. 20 plus DKP and we're probably good. Robert Duggar on the mound for the Mariners. I don't really want anything to do with him here. I just be looking at the Angels bats, but like you said, in DFS, these Ohtani pitcher days really mess up the plausibility of the Angels stack because you only get credit for his bat, or excuse me, for his arm and not his bat. So you end up really, really shallow with what you can do with that top of that Angels lineup. The Upton power resurgence continues. Homered yesterday. Maybe he stays hot. He might lead off, but yesterday he was dropped down in order a little bit, still homered. Jared Walsh, Rendon, guys that stick out to me. But that's really it. I wouldn't really get to the bottom of the order. So can't really say that I would stack the Angels when I can only play 3 of them and feel like, it makes sense. So we'll just have them in the pool and let them fall where they fall.
Yeah, the Mariners, they've been no hit twice this year. I don't know if Ohtani has the pitch count to really get up there and try to make it 3 times, but it's at least in play if that splitter is right and he can get it in the strike zone, or at least get those swinging strikes on a day like today. Cubs, Giants were able to score some runs last night. Brandon Crawford, another home run. I don't know what's going on with him, but Jake Arrieta has the start for the Cubs, and we're not sure yet who will be starting for the Giants. What jumps out to you here? It'll be Scott Kazmir.
Yeah, I had Kazmir down, and we talked about Kazmir. Kazmir was out of the league for years,
yes.
And came back, and hey, you got to face the Dodgers twice, 4 innings, 1 innings. I think at best it's probably a glorified bullpen game on the Giants side. Kazmir going 4 innings and then 1 inning. So I just I would project it to be a bullpen game. I probably wouldn't play Kazmir, even though he's the min-price 4K at pitcher spot. Cubs bats, man. I yesterday, Jock Peterson made me a proud guy, but let's talk about it. Jock Peterson's 5'2", Chris Bryant's 5'8". Chris Bryant's more than Coors. Like, what is going on? We got Anthony Rizzo at 5'7". The pricing does not make sense to me. It's really, I'm getting a headache. So you can't just this is the Oracle Park. It's just, I don't think I can land on the Cubs with any level of confidence at those prices. So it might take away their viability. Again, you could reverse that and call it leverage. If Chris Bryant is the slate breaker at almost 6K, cool. I guess Javi Baez against a washed lefty into the bullpen, cool. There's a case for it, but it's hard to get over that pricing. On the Giants side, talked about this team is just surprising everybody. Evan Longoria might be back in the mix. Keep an eye on that. He's another guy that has been opening some eyes. Him, Posey, you mentioned Crawford. A lot of guys performing above expectation. Arrieta is going to play more as a contact pitcher by design. Hope for a high ground ball rate, but definitely somebody that can fall down. Temperature wise, in the 50s, but the humidity really doggone high 90s. So might be able to neutralize the temp a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to have too much invested in this game at all, pitcher or hitter. But I'd probably clear a couple of these guys to make the player pool for the optimizer. But like I said, the DK pricing on the Cubs is kind of a headache, but much more viable on FanDuel. Like Jock Peterson, almost a 3K difference. So maybe I'll end up with more on FanDuel.
All right, so Cubs, Giants, yeah, kind of hard to get to in aspects of this game, even if you do like the idea of attacking a Jake Arrieta or a Scott Kazmir. And then finally, Mets, Padres, Joey Lucchesi started against his former team, the San Diego Padres. And for the Padres, Blake Snell on the mound, still getting a lot of ownership. It's kind of like Luis Castillo. I mean, how many times are you going to keep going back to the same well and hoping that Blake Snell is the guy that he was in the past?
Yeah, definition of insanity. I've been pretty out on Blake Snell. I think I might have played him opening day, and that was it. Once I saw I think he said 1 game all year where they let him go 6 innings, and that kind of ruins him for FanDuel, where you really want that quality start and try and scoop that win. The heart wants what the heart wants. He's still an elite strikeout potential guy. He does face a Mets lineup that can be pretty weak, particularly against left-handed pitching. So at 9,200, I guess there is a range of outcome where he finally lasts another 6-inning game and is a top 4 fantasy scoring pitcher. But I just feel like there's much more viability in a couple guys below him. We mentioned Ohtani and a lot more viability above him. And the most damning argument against him for me is the ownership. If he's going to be right now, we got him at 30%. If he's going to be 30%, there's not much to support that for me. So if that's one of those ways to make that athletic stack different, is to not have the Snell part of the Scherzer combo at the pitcher position, then that's an easy call for me. I'm out. I understand why people aren't giving up on him, but the leverage creates itself when the track record is what it is right now.
You stack against him. Pete Alonso is expected to be back in the Mets lineup, just a rest day yesterday.
Maybe not stacked, but I wouldn't. Yeah, Peter Alonso, maybe Kevin Pillar, a couple of guys I'd allow to create the player pool. But again, what are these Mets prices? VR 4.4, Lindor 4.9, McCann 4.9, Alonso 5.2. They're collectively more than Coors again. Like I want to call DraftKings and complain.
I feel like the Rockies offense is just so bad it's breaking everything.
I guess it's bad.
And then Joey Lucchesi going up against San Diego. That side of things here.
6-5 for Lucchesi. Yesterday, a crisis averted. Tatis made the lineup. I think he homered with a little help. Maybe it was a little double. But when you're hot, you're hot. And then Tommy Pham avoided the IL. Sat out yesterday after that collision with Kim, busted his chin. But this is a Padres lineup that I've liked a lot against lefties, and getting a guy like Lucchesi, I think this could be I don't want to say sneaky, but it could be an upside spot. Padres have a low implied run total. If you give me a lineup that features Pham, Machado, Tatis, Will Myers as guys who we can have access to, I'd probably have some of them in the mix, even though, again, the pricing a little bit high, but at least it's understandable with Tatis.
Yeah. So look, just in review, Coors Field, I mean, the A's kind of have to be in the mix, just the way the pricing sets up and what the over-under and what you're looking at as a potential offensive output there for that particular team. And then it's really, what pitchers you're going to go with at the top with Max Scherzer, Zack Wheeler in the mix. They go head-to-head. Freddie Peralta for Milwaukee. Anything else? Final thoughts on a big 15-game slate here, Gundacker?
Nah, just if you guys are coming in from NBA, don't get overwhelmed and don't overreact to what happens tonight. Friday night is just like the big slates for NBA. There's going to be a lot of craziness, and oftentimes, some of the trendier plays, pitching and hitting, will kind of underwhelm. So if this is one of your first slates, don't overreact to a 15-game Friday night Coors slate. Kind of hang around, catch one of those 6 gamers without Coors, and we'll hold your hand and get you on the right path.
And one tip: Zach Greinke is not the Cy Young Award winning Zach Greinke anymore, so you can have that something we've seen over the first couple of months of the year. If the numbers are decent, of course. Hey, you want to follow at Awesemo MLB, all of your lineups, latest updates. Pitcher gets scratched at the last minute, you got to scramble. That's a great place to find out about those things. Give us a like, subscribe here on our Awesemo YouTube channel so you keep up with our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, the whole 9 yards. Make sure hit that notification button as well so you know when we do go live. And look, we still got a lot to come here on the Awesemo channel. The tip-off is coming your way at 4 Eastern, and MLB Deeper Dive is at 5 Eastern. And our thanks, of course, to our sponsor, PrizePicks today. And for Gundacker, our producer, Tyler, I'm PeteyMac. Happy stacking.